This video is dedicated to Christian Roberts. Christian, thank you. The Gitrog Monster versus Lurrus of the Dream Den. If it wasn't for that vampiric tutor, I don't think I'd keep that, but we can maybe go in for... what do we go in for? Well, we've got another draw. Maybe we can go in for a Cultivate or something like that. I am going to keep that one and we'll get down a turn 1 Sol Ring. Put a stop on the upkeep just in case we want to go for Vamp Tutor during our next turn, but I'm thinking we see what we draw into first and then... Okay. Alright, let's try again. The Gitrog Monster, this time versus Kaalia of the Vast. Again, it's a 1-lander, but we've got Lotus Cobra and a Mana Crypt, so... yeah, probably shouldn't keep that one, but we'll risk it. We are on the draw at least. Okay, no land for us on our first draw. Let's get into this Lotus Cobra, and then we can make as much mana as possible if we do manage to get into another land sometime soon. At least we can go for Raven's Crime on our next turn. Might just go for Ramunap actually, just in case we get into a fetch land at some point. Talisman of Indulgence from our opponent, so assuming they get into white mana, we may well see their commander next turn. Just a Toxic Deluge for us, so I think we'll go in for Ramunap Excavator. Raven's Crime gives them the choice of what they discard, so it's great in the later game because you can have them empty their hand, but in the earlier game it's not necessarily going to do as much good. If they're only left with 1 or 2 cards in hand, then we'll probably go for it then. Alright, they passed the turn straight away. In fact, they passed it by really quickly, so I'm just asking my opponent. Looks like they did do it by accident. If they did, then I'll just pass the turn back over to them. And all that's really gained there is that we get an extra card draw, as does our opponent. Ugh, yeah, got into a Wood Elves as well. So, obviously not going to attack, not going to do anything there. Would have been nice to play that Wood Elves and get an advantage over our opponent there, but don't want to play against the client being funny. Don't want to take advantage of that. They didn't have any white mana anyway, even with the extra draw. But they've got it now with Darksteel Ingot, and even more mana with the Boros Signet. So they can get their commander out a couple of times now. Still no land for us. Let's make some mana with this Wood Elves. We'll take ourselves into a Bayou, and we're going to make black mana with the Lotus Cobra. We can only go for Raven's Crime once, but there's nothing else we can do. Is Retrace discarding a land or any card? Yeah, I thought it was discarding a land card, so obviously we can't do that currently. Because in the lands matter deck, we're not getting into any lands. Still Hellkite we get rid of from our opponent. We'll swing in at them for 4 and then see if they've got any haste that they can get onto their Kaalia. So Kaalia of the Vast comes down. They do have 2 mana held up. You really want haste with Kaalia, but luckily for us they don't have it. So we'll see which non-land permanent we draw into this time. That's a Beast Within. I was going to go for Toxic Deluge here, but I think Beast Within is alright. Yeah, we'll save the Toxic Deluge for now, because we might have to use that. Yeah, so let's swing in with the Lotus Cobra and the Ramunap, because they're not going to block there. And then we'll Beast Within on our opponent's turn, so that they have a Summoning Sick Beast. They might go for some kind of enchantment or equipment onto here, so we'll try and waste some of their mana. No, they're just going straight through to combat, so at the beginning of the combat step we'll go Beast Within onto their commander. They can get it out again this turn. Deciding not to get it out again though, going for more ramp in Commander Sphere. And that's a Cross and Grip for us. They actually have 3 white sources here, so we can't take them off their colours, which I would do in this scenario. I think we're just going in for Garrick Wildspeaker and we'll make ourselves a beast. That way we can at least trade when that beast comes towards us. And then next turn we can make 6 mana, so we might have to just go for Mana Reflection and try and get the game going somehow. You would think that whatever they want to cheat in with Kaalia, they'd just be able to straight up cast at this point. Alright, but still not doing anything, not too sure what their aim is here. Okay, Obnixilis Reignited. I might just go in for that actually because it's card draw. So let's go black and black along with the Mana Crypt. We'll untap 2 lands and then go in for Obnixilis Reignited. If they can't get haste on their commander, then that will be nice removal for said commander. Hopefully we don't see any hasty dragons or anything, but we'll draw and lose a life from Obnixilis. And they're going for something in response to that. And it's a Bugden Hellkite. That's as good as haste. So they can deal 5 damage divided up. You'd want to deal all of it to Obnixilis, I would think. And dealing it to our creatures, surprisingly. Yeah, that makes sense, I suppose. They can go for... what do they go for? Probably swinging in the Bugden Hellkite at Obnixilis still. And would you look at that, we finally get into a land. I would love to have discarded that to cast the Raven's Crime and then played it back out with the Ramunap, but no such luck apparently. So we'll play the Forest. And yeah, might just have to be Toxic Deluge next turn. Merciless Eviction, that exiles our Planeswalkers, so that means they're just coming in at us this turn. If we get into a land again, I might just have to go for Mana Reflection and try really hard to keep up with our opponent here because they're way ahead of us with regards to mana. And we do have these Lightning Bolts from Mana Crypt to worry about as well. But luckily we win the flip this time. Okay, Farseek. Maybe it's Farseek and Toxic Deluge. I think we'll have to do that. Yeah, let's try and sneak 3 points of damage in at our opponent. They might suspect something if we swing in here. They might just let it through. And they do, so we get a free Lightning Bolt on them. Then we'll see about this Toxic Deluge for 5. Okay, cracking the Commander Sphere in response to that. They can do that next turn, so it might be worth seeing what they draw into first, but going for the Commander Sphere crack anyway, so they'll have 3 cards in hand next turn. We'll go for the Shockland here, because we certainly don't want to be taking any damage that we don't have to. So it only took us 8 turns, but we got into 4 lands eventually. And they go in for their Kaalia again. They overtapped for that, so I'm assuming they're not really bothered about holding up any mana. Maybe they've got swords or a tutor, something like that. Anyway, we lose the flip this time. Probably going to lose the game soon enough. Brutalizer Exarch doesn't do anything for us. Yeah, we don't really have anything other than our commander at this point. Apparently. We don't have any lands in the deck to draw into, so we'll just play the Gitrog Monster and wait for them to swing in and drop something that kills us next turn. They go straight through to combat, so they can get down a dragon, an angel, or a demon. And it is an angel that they get into. Another target permanent is indestructible for as long as you control this. They target their commander with that. And that is exactly enough to see us off. So I don't think if we'd gotten another turn on our opponent it would have helped. Maybe it would. We would have been into a forest. Yeah, I still don't think it would have helped at all because we just were nowhere near fast enough. Oh, of course, there we start getting into all the stuff that we needed. Yeah, all of this stuff is what we needed in the early game. And we had everything that we needed in the late game. So just drawing into everything in the wrong order. We'll use this as a means of showing off what Kaalia can do for all of you Kaalia of the Vast fans. And we'll get on with the real game now. The Gitrog Monster versus Mangara the Diplomat. Yeah, that's a pretty sketchy one as well. We're not going to get outdrawn, I don't think, by this player. Not at first, anyway. If we've got both of our commanders in play, we will do. I'm going to keep that because I like that Phyrexian Arena, and I'm hopeful that we get into another black mana before turn 3. Failing that, we can always play this thing and then play the Phyrexian Arena next turn. We are going to start feeding our opponent cards if they get into their commander quickly though. Take ourselves into a swamp and pass the turn over. 39 lands in this deck, and we weren't drawing into them last turn. Let's drop the forest and we'll just have to pass again. Got 2 colourless lands in hand now. So not having the best of luck today with the Gitrog Monster. Anyway, they got down a Ruins of Trollkær on the first turn, so we could see a turn 3 Mangara. I've just got my fingers crossed that we can go for... Yeah, we can go for a Phyrexian Arena if we get into a black land, which we do not, so we will go for the Reliquary Tower into Dryad of the Elysian Grove. And even if they don't make a land next turn, they can still get into their commander. We'll play the Thespian Stage because we can make an additional land there. And now, if we go for Skyshroud Claim next turn, yeah, if we draw into a land next turn, we can go Skyshroud Claim, make the land, and go for Phyrexian Arena, because this thing brings lands in untapped. And there is their commander on turn 3. Like we thought, they did get into a land, and there is the land that we need. Doesn't really matter what lands we draw into at the moment, as long as we have this in play, because they are every basic land type. So let's go Skyshroud Claim, and we are going to feed our opponent a card here, because we're going to cast 2 spells. We'll go Overgrown Tomb and the Bayou just in case our Dryad is dealt with. Shock the Overgrown Tomb into play. And we'll go for Phyrexian Arena, which, like I said, will draw Mangara a card. And then it's a couple of 2/4s in play, so might be that they swing in anyway just because this has lifelink. They might as well swing in with it and try and gain a little bit of life. Alright, Return to Dust. That's exactly why I went for the lands that I went for, because they did have an answer for our Dryad there. Also had an answer for our Phyrexian Arena. Let's go for the Gitrog Monster. Do we just want to go for... Yeah, we could go after this thing, because they're not making lands. I think that might be what we have to do. We'll go after the land that makes 2 mana, and then we can go in for Bane of Progress onto that thing next turn. Play the Gaia's Cradle, just in case we get into a land next turn, because we're back to only making 1 land a turn. And obviously they can't really swing this thing into a Death Toucher, so that should buy us a little bit of time, hopefully. They do make a land, so it might be that they had a... what would that be? A 4, 5, 6 mana spell to cast. First Strike on a 2/1. Loyalty abilities of Planeswalkers your opponent's control cost 1 generic to activate. Oh, that goes really well with the Gaia's Cradle, doesn't it? Don't think we care about Authority of the Consuls. Maybe we go for Bane of Progress here. Or do we just want to start swinging in at our opponent? If they gain life from this, then so be it. Yeah, I think we want to just try and outrace our opponent at this point. It switches on the Gaia's Cradle nicely once we've gotten down the Avenger of Zendikar. So let's get a bunch of life gained by our opponent. Getting into way more lands this time around. And how many lands do we have in play here? That's 4 and 8. So if we make a land next turn, we'll be able to get a plus counter on all of those plant tokens. Hopefully getting into some land-based ramp so that we can start swinging in at our opponent. Going in with their 2/1 with First Strike, we'll just let that through. That will kill the Acidic Slime if we block with it. But thanks to this thing being an enchantment, it will get wrapped up in the Bane of Progress. They go for Cast Out, which hopefully goes on... Yeah, I was going to say that hopefully goes on the Avenger of Zendikar. So what's going to happen here is we're going to go Bane of Progress next turn. Oh, Brutalizer Exarch is nice as well. We've got 9 mana there alone. 10, 11, 12 with 4 held up. So we can go for both of these. Let's go for Bane of Progress first. We'll get our Avenger of Zendikar back. Actually, let's go for Brutalizer Exarch first, because I'm not sure what exactly we're tutoring for at the moment. They gain a life from the Authority of the Consuls again. We're going to search for a creature card to put on top of our library. And why don't we make that the infamous Primeval Titan? Then we'll go for the Bane of Progress as well. And that is our second spell, so it draws our opponent a card. But we are going to get a bunch of plant tokens back here when the Avenger comes back into play. So hopefully our opponent hasn't drawn into a board wipe, because once we get prime time down next turn, those plants are going to be huge. They actually go down to, wow, 3 mana there, thanks to the fact that they were reliant on rocks. So we're in a very good position now. Might as well hit our opponent for 2, because they're not going to block that, and we can block with Avenger of Zendikar now. So we've got opposite problems here. Our opponent is full of cards in hand, and we've got no cards in hand, except we've got mana and they don't. They get into a Goldmere for a bit more mana. It's the problem with mono white. You are reliant on lots of rocks and things like that to ramp with. So Bane of Progress can hose some decks. Anyway, we'll go for the Prime Evil Titan. That can take us into Dark Depths, and we'll get our Field of the Dead as well. We can go for the Dark Depths combo with the Thespian Stage at the end of our opponent's turn, get ourselves into some zombie tokens. We'll get plus counters, a couple of plus counters from 2 lands entering, thanks to the Avenger of Zendikar being back in play. And then we'll finally get down our Gitrog Monster as well. That is the second spell, so our opponent draws a card again, see if they can get into any decent ramp. They're going to have to be quick though. We'll just swing in with everything here. We might actually have our opponent at this point, I'm not sure. Anyway, they're going to draw yet another card with Mangara. Probably the best card draw spell that's been printed in white in a very long time, maybe ever. We are back up to 7, blocking the most damage on the 6 power creature. Oof, and that lifelink really mattered there because our opponent managed to survive at 1. So it's looking like we've managed to do it here. This is how the Gitrog Monster is supposed to operate, unlike the last game. That's unfortunate. Our opponent said that they are 1 mana short of a board wipe. That wouldn't have saved them anyway, because we could have gone in for the indestructible Marit Lage. It is indestructible, isn't it? A 2020 flyer with indestructible, and we could have done that at the end of our opponent's turn. So, but yeah, good game to our opponent. I think I need to build Mangara. I think it will be better in multiplayer, so I'll probably make a multiplayer deck out of it. Be sure to let me know what you think of that idea. I'm tribalkai on the EDH channel. Thank you.